Greetings, conquerors. Welcome to Level Up. Level Up is our 8-week course. And yeah, we're going to spend 8 weeks together just kind of sharing and going over some things. Now, technically this is a class because we will be teaching. However, I would like to sort of approach this like a workout more so than a class. I want to keep these things short so that you can spend the bulk of your life energy actually doing this stuff rather than spending a lot of that time here with us. So first thing I need to tell you is that we will discuss some things that we've already talked about because I just feel that some things need to be gone over again. Some of these things we're going to talk about, either you already know it or you're already doing it. And that's part of what we're going to get into. If you do know these things, if you are doing these things, then have things legitimately gotten better. We're going to get into that. We're also going to get into a lot of what might be the fundamentals of life. In other words, you can speak, but what kind of person are you? You can get up in front of crowds and talk to thousands upon thousands of people. But is there some room to get better just with the fundamentals of speech patterns or preparation for your sessions or preparation as a musician or as a person or whatever the case is? So we're going to get into all of that. And now that I have shared all of that, let's get into our first session. So the first session this week is about who am I? Okay, that's what we're going to talk about. Who am I? Who are you? Who is me? Right? So inevitably something happens. Inevitably, after we've done the stuff, eventually we got to deal with the you and me of it all, right? Inevitably, it happens where people will love the author or the speaker or the pastor or whatever you have done. They'll love whoever they think that person is. And they might not really love you because they may not have gotten the opportunity to get to know you. And it might be possible that you haven't taken the time to get to know yourself. So we've done this a few times. We've at least discussed it a few times. But tonight in this class or this workout session, we're going to basically deal with that or deal with the mechanics of finding out who we are. So I got to warn you. I have to warn you. You might not like, or we might not like the person that we uncover once we start pulling back some layers. We might discover that we don't really like whoever that is. And we might discover that that's why we have worked so hard doing some other things, because we really weren't trying to be noble or being driven to be great. We were just basically running from whoever that clown is, right? Okay, so let's kind of get into that. Okay, so please remember that I'm always going to offer you homework. I'm always going to give you something to do because you need to do something. We need to be physically and mentally working out so that we can get better. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do, if you have it available, is grab a pen, piece of paper, grab your device, and take some notes, because I want to make sure we get these things down. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to write down. I want you to type your name, your full name. All right. So once you have done that, then I want you to write down 3 things that you cannot stand about that person. And here's how I want you to treat it. Imagine that the person whose name you see is someone other than you, and you're going to sort of discuss the things that you don't like about that individual. In other words, just sort of step out of yourself and just write down 3 things that you can't stand about that individual. If it's laziness, if it's triflingness, if it's bad attitude, if it's a stank breath, or whatever the case is, 3 things that you just can't stand about this particular person. Now, I might use the word hate. You'll hear that sometimes. I'll use some words that are very distasteful. But the point is, if we're going to do this for real, then we have to sort of scoot up real close to the actual issue. So the first thing, I want you to write your name. Second thing, I want you to write down 3 things that you cannot stand about this particular individual. Okay? So what do we do after that, right? All right, then I want you to take the very first thing that you can't stand. And I want you to figure out one of 2 things. I want you to determine, is this just who I am? Or is there an opportunity for me to change this? In other words, there's a lot of people that spend a lot of time just saying, it's just who I am. You know, I talk all the time, even though I bore people to death, even though people will run away from me because they know if I start talking an hour later, I'm still talking, and they haven't been able to get a word in edgewise. Well, write that down. Just consider these things. If I'm a person who just has just a really awful attitude all the time, or I claim to be misunderstood, then is there an opportunity to evolve and or get better from this? And I want you to do that with each one of these things. Take the first thing and be honest about that. Take the second thing and then the third thing, and I want you to follow this process, okay? Now, what is the point in doing this, right? One of the things that drive me nuts, right, in the human race, all right, one of the things that bothers me the most is the myth of perfection. Perfection being unattainable. Perfection being we just can't accomplish it. Perfection being I can't do this and I can't do that, and I'm not perfect and no one else is, and all of that. That's a load of bull. That's a problem, because what that does, that gives us a built-in license not to be the best that we possibly can be. In other words, if I am an alcoholic, right, and I decide to do what I know I shouldn't do, and I go ahead and decide to take a drink, okay? I've committed not to, but I've decided to do it anyway. Here's the truth. That's probably a disease. That's probably an addiction. That's probably an issue. But not being perfect has nothing to do with it. If you are a person who don't mind stealing from time to time, okay? Now, you don't have to do these things. We don't have to be the ugly of ourselves. We can be the better and the good. We can be the best we possibly can be, but we have to dismiss and we have to put away the myth of perfection. Here's what I mean. Now please stay with me. The way that the human race defines perfection is basically absent of mistakes. In other words, the idea being, or the thought being, that as long as I live, I'm constantly evolving, and I'll never reach the point where I will never make any mistakes, okay? Now that happens to be true, because we're always evolving, but that has nothing to do with being perfect. Okay, so I'm a person who likes scripture. I really dig scripture and the Bible. And the Bible defines it. Matter of fact, sometimes the Bible will give us an indication that God is the one that said that perfection just means maturity. That's it. It means being upright. It means being sincere. It just means being mature. In other words, yes, you will make some mistakes, all right? But when you do make those mistakes, you own up to them and move on with your life. And then at some point you realize, I ain't got to do that no way. At some point you realize the only reason that I'm doing this, because if I'm doing what I want to do, I can't necessarily classify that as a mistake. I can classify it as a bad decision or a poor choice, but it's not a mistake if I really wanted to do it. Here's the truth. Some people sin because they still want to. People still get out of line, they get out of pocket, they cheat on people because they want to do it. Why do I do this? What's the song? Why must I feel like that? Why must I chase the... See, my point is this. The point is simply this. Ladies and gentlemen, let's look at ourselves. Let's determine who we are. Let's figure it out. Because we can't really move on to the other stuff until we have determined who we are. Who I am. Behind the name, behind the title, behind the suit, behind the dress, behind all of these things. Who am I underneath it all? Because that person inevitably will show up at some point. You know, it's a tragedy when people see people's names on hospitals, people's names in research facilities, people's names in halls at churches and at colleges and all of these things. And then when you really get down to it, yeah, they gave us a bunch of money, so we named a building after them, but we really can't stand that so-and-so, don't like him at all, because of the way he talks to people, because of the way she talks to people, because of the way he acts, because of the way she responds to things, the way that he just pops off at people, the way that she just talks trash about everybody. You know, so we want to make sure in our journey, we want to make sure that whatever we're doing in terms of an external successful life, we want to make sure that we're being successful on the inside. Listen, it's much better to be a great person and be broke than it is to be an absolute jerk. I was about to cuss. To be an absolute jerk on the inside, but have all kinds of money and are able to do a whole lot of things. Because when it's all said and done, the only thing that will matter is what you did from here. All that will really matter is who you were in here. Okay, so that's our first class. That's our first workout. What are we gonna do? Who am I? First thing, write your name down. Write your correct name down. None of those nicknames and all that kind of stuff, because that's still a form of hiding from who we really are. Because some of us have a personality based on the nickname. In other words, your actual name is Michael, okay? And Michael acts a certain way. But some people will call you Mike. Mike is a different guy. Your name may be it may be Rochelle, and Rochelle is she's refined. Her hair is done. She speaks a certain way. She wears a particular type of shoe. Rochelle is dependable. But the other person, I was about to cuss again, but the other person has a different personality. As a matter of fact, if the two actually met one another, one would treat the other like a stranger. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the first thing we want to do. We want to write our name down. Get it down correctly. Okay, then I want you to write down 3 things that you absolutely cannot stand about that individual. All right, and then the third thing I want you to do is determine whether or not you can or that you want to move on or evolve from that space, or if you want to just call it like it is. Just say, I'm just going, this is who I am, this is who I'm going to stay, and that's just the way it's going to be. Now, there's a pro and a con here. If you want to evolve from that won't be an easy proposition, because if you've been one way for at least your adult life, it'll be a challenge to adjust to a new set of circumstances. However, evolution is going to happen anyway. In other words, we're going to get older, right? Life is going to move on. If we're allowed to live any longer than today, then we're going to have to deal with the evolution of life, and that's on automatic pilot, which means there's nothing we can do about that. However, if you decide that you want to stay exactly the way you are, because this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be, I'm okay with this individual, and that's just the way it is, okay, that's fine, but recognize the fact that eventually people will get tired of you. People will get sick of you. They will get tired of constantly having to affirm you. They will get tired of constantly having to excuse the way that you just pop off at restaurants. Just because somebody brought you the wrong entree. And forgetting the fact that there's probably 100 other people in there, and they got to deal with their thing too. People are eventually going to get sick of the fact that you just won't think for yourself. Or you just won't do things on your own. Or you just won't stand up on your own 2 feet. Whatever the case is, there are no indictments being passed out. We're just talking in sort of a general sense. So that's it. That's the first thing. Next time we get together, what I want to know, what I would like to kind of get into is that we've done this homework and we've done this, because if we do this correctly, we might be a little drained, we might be a little exhausted, but ready to move on. So one more time, write your name down. Write your name, your full name, including your middle name if you have one, and any suffixes or prefixes. Some of you have degrees, so write all that stuff down. Who is that person? And then I want you to write down 3 things that you can't stand about that individual, and then decide whether or not you want to evolve from that person, or if you just want to keep it the way that it is. Okay, that's all we got for this session. We will see you. We'll see you next time.